Welcome to Elevate, a Women's Leadership Institute podcast where we showcase stories, celebrate successes, and shift culture. Hey, it's part 2. So excited to continue this conversation with Pete Codella. If you haven't caught part 1, go back and listen to it and then continue with us today. I want to go back to the startup and the pathway.
Okay.
Is there anything for businesses wanting to start up and the money or the resources they get about this, about creating opportunity for all in their plan as they start out? Because I love your idea of having it part of the system from the beginning. That's so much easier.
It is. And we are not coming as a state and saying we're going to fund startups, right? So the money's not coming from us, but our intention is to highlight and feature and promote and advocate for all the existing resources in the state of Utah. So venture capital firms, other funding opportunities, family offices. Those are the folks that we want to partner with and collaborate with.
Okay.
And get them involved to help, as you say, support and provide that opportunity to all kinds of startups.
Okay. So it's part of the conversation, but not like
we don't have a
like
quota.
a line item. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a program on my team that does have a 30% quota. It's from the federal government. It's the State Small Business Credit Initiative. And we have a Utah Small Business Credit Initiative. Okay. We signed I'm gonna go down this path for a minute.
Okay.
We signed a contract with the Treasury in November of 2022. They agreed to send Utah $69 million to provide capital to companies that can't get a traditional bank loan. They don't have the equity. They don't have the credit score. They're brand new. All those reasons.
Yeah.
We need capital in that space.
Yes.
So our office partnered with the Treasury. We have $69 million to bring to the state.
Wow.
30% of that money has to go to SETI businesses, socially, economically disadvantaged. Rural Utah counts, women-owned counts, minority-owned counts. Like, there are lots of cool things about that program.
Yeah.
So we have over a dozen lending partners around the state signed up. It took us about a year, a little over, to build out the system in our Office Salesforce platform. We haven't done loans before. We've done grants.
Okay.
This is a loan program. So now we have lending partners, and a small business who needs capital, who can't get one from a bank, can go to the website, business.utah.gov/USBCI. At the bottom, there's a list of lending partners, and it identifies the areas that those partners are in that they cover, and they go to the bank and say, I need capital, and see if one of our programs, we have a capital access program and a loan participation program.
Perfect.
See if one of those will work for them. So that's one way that we are hoping to solve that capital access challenge.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up because, again, I feel like there are so many resources for people, but sometimes figuring out what they are, where they are, how to maneuver through it, right? All those things are where it gets a little tricky.
And my team is working on probably a 10-minute recorded webinar that's going to highlight from our perspective all the things the state's doing to help in this space for small businesses. And I hope to have that out here in the next month or so. But you're right. Just knowing about them is a challenge, especially when you have a life and you have a family and you're running a business and you have day-to-day things that keep you up longer than you want to be up and you're tired.
That's right. So or you're in a full-time job and you want to start a business, but you're still working your full-time job and all those things.
And again, I can somewhat relate to that because I've been an entrepreneur.
You've been there, yeah.
My wife... Here's another challenge. My wife was a school teacher at the time. Okay. We got health insurance through her. Yes. When she stopped teaching and we had kids, our health insurance premium became more than our mortgage payment.
So high, yep.
With a young family. That is a barrier for entrepreneurs. So something Brad Bonham and Ryan Starks and I have talked about, even with the governor and the chief of staff. How do we support entrepreneurs with an affordable healthcare program? And we're working on it.
It is a big concern.
It is, yeah. Is there a way that the state can help fund a group program and they can join it? Chambers of Commerce sometimes have that. Professional associations sometimes have that. So we're looking at, is there a way for the state to step into that space and help out? Like, that's a big challenge.
Yeah, I appreciate you brought that up. So you oversee so many parts. Well, first of all, I want to clarify for those who don't know, what constitutes a small business?
Do you want the Federal Small Business Association definition, or do you want? Yeah,
Probably just your definition for our
I
listeners.
think that's 250 or fewer
Okay.
employees. Um, when I consider a small business, it's 50 or fewer.
Okay.
There's very small businesses.
Yeah.
I may not be quoting the numbers correctly.
No, of course.
But
that's the gist.
But your point for women entrepreneurs,
yes.
often, and this is a metric where Wallet Hub, okay, I pulled out a Wallet Hub ranking where we're number one. There is a Wallet Hub ranking where we're dead last.
It's ironic,
and we have been
isn't
last forever. I think since they started it, and it's women, it's gender in Utah. It's terrible. It's not acceptable. And that's why I'm part of the A Bolder Way Forward movement, which we can talk about. But often women entrepreneurs, they're the only employee. We have to get them to a point where they have another employee for it to count on this. And it's not all about the numbers and the metric. But I'm saying this is one measurement where if there were at least two employees, the entrepreneur and another employee, we would do a lot better in the ranking.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because one thing that we have talked about is I've heard Scott Anderson say one reason why those numbers are so hard is because talking about the Utah way and the work ethic, we have a political development series, and part of the really good space for that are people who are involved in the PTA, people who serve on their community councils, who are leaders in their own right, but they're not getting paid for it. So that also skews the numbers. So, it's tricky.
None of us should tell others what they should do for work or whether or not they should volunteer or whether they should only work 10 hours a week versus 60 hours a week.
Yeah.
That's everyone's choice. And that's why I'm saying opportunity for all to choose the path that they want.
Yeah.
But we have to find a way to support the women entrepreneurs who want to grow, right? So that they can do better. We also, let's talk about pay equity.
Let's do it.
Why in the world does the same job still get different pay for men and women? And Utah has not moved the needle much in that regard.
How about even just putting the pay on it, the pay range?
Yeah, I hear you.
That seems like a big uphill battle.
I will say in our office a couple years ago, and by the way, we're pretty close to half and half men and women. In our leadership team, we skew heavier for women than we do men.
Okay.
But we do have pay equity. We looked at it. Same job classification. We're there now. We weren't a handful of years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We weren't a handful of years ago. And of course, that's part of the Elevate Her Challenge. But people in Utah, executives in Utah, women should be on your boards. Women should be in every leadership category. You should pay men and women the same. Anyway.
I love it. I don't know if you can feel his passion, but he's like passionate about it. He's gone off script, and I love his passion.
I'm the co-chair for the Organizational Strategies and Workplace Culture Spoke.
Yes.
On the Bolder Way Forward initiative from the Utah Women in Leadership Project. My spoke is focused on that culture piece. How in the world are we going to move Utah's culture between now and 2030? We have to have these conversations, and we have to acknowledge that there are improvements that need to be made. And
how do we have
issues.
these conversations, Pete? Like, that's the big question. Culture is, and we were talking a little bit about this before, of there's a legislative piece and there's a time and a place for some of those to regulate. But if you legislate something and the people's heart and minds are not coming along with it, that's problematic too, in a way. So what have you found for these conversations? I feel like it's just a lot of conversations. It's a lot of education. It's a lot of messaging so people can hear and receive.
It is
what you are offering.
I'll say one thing a strategy that we hope to employ is to convene 15 to 20, we've talked about this before, executives from different Utah organizations and bring them together and say, what have you done that has worked for women in your business? What programs, initiatives, policies, what has worked really well? Tell us about it. Tell us about the outcome.
Yeah.
2.
And why did it work?
Yeah, exactly. 2, what have you tried that did not work at all? It was a miserable failure. But those kind of conversations with that group, and then we get them talking. We need the people who are in leadership to have these conversations with their executive teams, with the C-suite, with their boards. as we've talked about, am in charge of the governor's One Utah Summit.
Yep.
There are 4 presenting organizations: Office of Economic Opportunity, Utah Office of Energy Development, World Trade Center Utah, Salt Lake Chamber. This is not a diss on any of those organizations, but all 4 are led by white men. How do I have diversity in my speakers when the presenting organizations have that type of leadership? Again, I love all the leaders.
Absolutely.
We just need more opportunity for different leaders. And it has to come from the middle of the organization and up to the leadership, executive team before you can get a CEO or an executive director. And Governor Cox, I think, has been very purposeful about putting women in his cabinet.
Yes.
Which I don't think Utah has seen before. And a woman lieutenant governor. And we have a woman on our federal delegation. We're making some progress.
Yeah.
It's not representative of all of Utah yet.
Yeah. But I feel like he's working through things using the government as like a business.
Yeah.
Working through pay parity, women on boards, all those things that you mentioned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because just like you said, as an entrepreneur, you feel really for these people in the entrepreneur space. If we get CEOs together, right, 95% of the businesses in Utah are white males. If we get the CEOs together so they can say, yes, this is working, this isn't working, this is what I found, right? Nobody's got time to waste.
Yeah.
So really getting to the point and having those people talking together, I think is good.
And we need those leaders to understand they may not see it. It's not their experience, but it is the experience of maybe half of their workforce. Yeah. And it's okay to talk about. And
you don't know till you know.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everyone has a journey to allyship for whatever cause. And start the journey, Utah. Start the journey.
So how did you get here? Like, you're a fiery advocate. I love it. Like, have you always been like this, or what shifted it for you?
This will be an interesting answer to that question.
Okay.
I posted something on social media in the 2010s that was critical of the way a woman was dressed at a conference.
Oh, wow.
I was the subject of a firestorm on social media. I'm like, there's nothing wrong with what I said. I changed my mind. I had so many people talk to me, and it's just unfair. Like, if I was speaking at a conference and my face was 30 feet tall, the big screen,
yep.
I'm probably in a suit and a button-down shirt and maybe a tie. And, women they wear different things, and different women from different cultures wear different things. And I just had to realize that there were some areas that I needed to be more considerate of others in. So,
Pete, thank you so much. That was such a real answer.
That's the truth.
And I love that you said, I changed my mind.
Yeah.
Like the other day, I was going to a work conference and I intuitively put on a suit. And then I will tell you that I got angry that was my intuition to put on a suit to go to the business conference. Because I wanted to wear a really colorful, skirt and dress, which I could have.
Yeah.
But that wasn't my first intuition. So
because you wanted to fit in.
Because I wanted to fit in.
Predominant faith.
And to be taken credibly.
For sure. Predominant faith in our state, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the new Young Women's President, Emily Bell Freeman.
Yeah.
Maybe it's been in a year or two. I can't recall. I love that she does not wear the suit jacket. When she goes to general conference, she'll wear a dress. She'll wear whatever. There's not a dress code.
I actually did notice that.
I know.
I actually noticed
it's noteworthy. So things are changing.
Sometimes they're so slow.
But more of us need to talk about it, and more of us need to
about it, and not get offended when we talk about it.
And prod it along. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Okay.
I feel like we've veered way off the script.
We've totally veered, but I love where we've veered. So, Pete, pie in the sky in 5 to 10 years, Utah business. What does it look like? I'll ask you personally from the fiery Pete we've just seen, and then also from your business perspective and the work you do at GoEO.
I hope that Utah business continues to excel. In a lot of ways, our economy and what's happening in Utah is unique. I do think that our governor and president of the National Governors Association and the Disagree Better campaign and his approach to governing, which I'll speak frankly for some is too moderate, I think it's a great example and you may disagree with some of the policies, and we can respect one another
Yeah.
when we disagree. I think that Utah has an amazing climate for business because we have the workforce. They're well educated.
Yeah.
People are interested in working. Our work engagement, I think, is up at a higher level now than it has been for decades.
Mm-hmm.
We have very low unemployment, so we have an engaged workforce. Like I said, we have the low tax burden. We also have a low cost of doing business.
Yeah.
There are some headwinds. Our housing market struggles.
Yes.
We are not alone. However, I think we're now maybe the fourth most expensive real estate market in the country, like Salt Lake
Mm.
City. That's not good. Like,
Do you think that's because of the economy that we have?
absolutely.
People
It's
coming
because
and
it's because of the great things that are happening here, and it's because of the family connections and other people who want to be here for the outdoors. They want to be here
right.
with their family.
Right.
And I want my kids to be able to buy a home in Utah, and right now they cannot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why the governor and the legislature have made that such a high priority. That is a strong headwind for Utah's future
Yeah,
success.
they kind of go hand in hand, don't they?
Affordability of housing, and we also have some scarce resources like water, like air
Right.
quality.
Yep.
So there are challenges, but at the same time, Utah has done so many things right and has been
Mm-hmm.
such a great example and has received some really great accolades. So I want to see more Fortune 100 companies in Utah. I want to see more like what you see along I-15 in Lehigh, where we're at.
Yeah.
And we will see infrastructure. Our office has talked about how Governor Cox has really invested in and helped expand Utah's infrastructure. And now we're looking
Yeah,
at it,
especially to rural.
especially to rural.
Yeah.
And I didn't talk about the Utah Broadband Center, which is in our office, which
Yeah.
is getting high-speed broadband throughout the state. You would think that everyone could remote telework wherever they are in the state. It's not true.
Right.
I think we're better than a lot of states, but there are areas where we can improve. And
Yeah.
so they've got federal money that they're using to get high-speed internet around.
That came to my attention because our career development series, we have satellite programs.
Mm-hmm.
And when I went out and I was visiting different rural spaces, like
And you're there and trying to connect to the internet.
Yeah. It's something I guess I took for granted. So I really appreciated that focus on the rural expansions.
Yeah. So I think Utah's economic outlook is quite
It's good.
sunny and good. And there are a lot of really good things happening here. I think our challenge is to not become a victim of our own success and to end up like places where people are leaving to come here, right?
Right.
And that can happen because they bring their kind of former environment, politics, disagreement, whatever it might be. So I hope that we can be welcoming
Mm-hmm.
and friendly and kind, and that way of life and the culture can be preserved in Utah. But I'm also of the opinion that it's better to grow than not to grow.
Yeah,
If
that's
you've
what I
ever
was just
lived
thinking.
somewhere, go live in Detroit. See what that feels like. We just have to be smart about how we do it. And I think that the high density development and the housing incentives that are happening,
Mm-hmm.
especially along rail,
Yeah, I love that
transit
component
lines.
of the
Yeah.
transportation and the high density housing together.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But we just got to find ways, even beyond that, for townhomes and just. I bought a condo when I took my first job out of college. It was
Uh-huh.
in Orem.
Okay.
So a townhome or a condo, after an apartment. If we become a society where everyone lives in high-rise apartments and rents and does not have the opportunity to purchase a home and build equity in a home, it's a different kind of culture. I don't think it's a Utah culture.
Mm. Interesting. I've done both. I've lived downtown with my 3 kids. I adored that.
Mm.
And now I live in the suburbs, right, with the backyard and the garage and all the things.
So here's my challenge. We're empty nesters now. We have a
Right.
home in South Jordan that is bigger than we need, and I would love to be on a one-level
Yeah.
home. I can't afford to move. It'd be almost twice as expensive for me to get a smaller home than to stay where I'm at with my current mortgage. So interest rates play into
And
this.
interest rates, yeah, the national.
I mean, there are so many
Yes.
pieces, and it's complicated.
Yeah.
But the opportunity for Utah is really tremendous, and we've done a lot. Utah does not become the #1 economy just by happenstance.
Sure.
Like, we can go back to former governors and their initiatives and the things that
And
they've
I
done.
feel like it's a progressive, right?
It
like
is.
Governor after
It is.
governor, yeah.
And Utah, novel idea, balances a budget, saves money for a rainy day. Like the state of Utah, AAA bond rating ever since the bond ratings were started. There might be a handful of states in that category. Utah's rainy day fund is quite large. I'm just saying that fiscal conservatism is something that paves the way for economic success, and people are seeing it. It's the collaboration, it's the ability to meet with elected officials and to network with others, to find mentors, to find capital. Utah has done a lot better at bringing all those resources together than other places.
So it's interesting because when we talked to allyship just a little bit ago, we talked about bringing everybody along, right? Nobody's left behind in that. And sometimes I feel when we talk about Utah and Utah's future, people feel like we have to leave part of Utah behind in order to progress, or it has to stay the same. But if it stays the same, then how does it grow deliberately? I feel like Natalie Gochner's talked about that with like keepers of the flame.
Yeah.
How do we do really thoughtful growth that works for people? And I really appreciate that perspective because I think Utah has many things going for it. Does it have some things that are not going for it? Yes. And I think that we all know that are trying to work towards it. But I like how you said it's a sunny outlook with some really thoughtful pieces we need to talk about.
Talk to me on a Friday afternoon when I leave work at 5 and get on I-15 and don't get home until 6:15 or later.
Or later.
That does not make me happy.
Yeah.
It is 19 miles. So when you compare that to other places, Utah's commute, I think, still ranks pretty great. But the growth does have some challenges.
Yeah, some challenges.
And all the cars on the roads. It was great to commute during COVID. Like, you could get up and down, get to downtown in 20 minutes. Easy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, lots of things. Pete, what haven't we talked about that you want to talk about? Do you have some facts and figures you want to share with us about Utah?
I did bring some economic data. We talked about low unemployment, and it's like some of the lowest in the country and has been for a while.
And is that across the board for all people who could work, low unemployment rates?
That it is,
Okay.
and there is one industry that struggled. So every industry grew in Utah last year except the information industry. So that's our IT
That's
friends,
kind of ironic.
isn't it? Yeah. But the economists say it's because it's impacted more by the higher interest rates than some of the other industries. So for what it's worth. But Utah's labor participation, the 2023 rate, was the highest the state's seen since
The
2010.
engagement that you talked about.
Engagement I talked about. The economy grew at 2.2%.
Do you think that's because people need to work because of the inflation, or what causes that engagement?
Well, Utah has a young population. I think 32 was the average median age.
Okay.
In the last census. I just think Utahns want to work. We're industrious.
And 32's in the middle of your career if you're working.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're relatively young. All those things. Inflation is a challenge and a headwind.
Yeah.
And it did cause housing prices. The flip was interesting. Home prices are down now about 0.8%, and they were higher than inflation. Now they're again that flip during the pandemic. Mortgage rates being higher than inflation now. They were lower than inflation during the pandemic. But still, housing is unaffordable for most people. And our population grows by about 1.5% to 2% annually. I mean, Utah's on a trajectory to be at 4 million, in the coming decade or so.
What does that look like?
And then 5 million. Here's something I'll highlight.
Yeah.
Our business incentive program.
Mhm.
It's called the Economic Development Tax Increment Financing,
Yes. Yep.
EDTIF.
Yes.
Thank
That's
you,
on my
legislature,
yes.
for EDTIF for the name. But there's a rural EDTIF. That program is relatively new,
Mhm.
and it can give a 50% tax credit back if you invest in rural Utah. So that's outside of the Wasatch Front
Right.
or Washington County. So the legislature, they are doing things to spur that development in other parts of the state.
Yeah.
We've seen Texas Instruments announce the largest capital investment in Utah ever with their expansion that's happening in Lehigh. We've got some really cool wins. But we are being more strategic and selective. So if you're on the Wasatch Front, you have to be in one of our 5 strategic targeted industries
I was just
to
going to
get the
say, let's
EDTIF.
talk about those
And
5 targeted industries.
okay, financial services,
Yep.
advanced manufacturing,
Right.
healthcare,
Okay.
information technology, and finance. Did I say
Space,
aerospace and defense?
aerospace and defense.
Thank you.
Okay.
Up north, what's happening with the companies up there and the contracts they've got from the federal government, bringing money to Utah, the expansion, Northrop Grumman,
Yeah.
amazing. Like, people don't realize our country's ground-based deterrent system is being developed in northern Utah. And those companies can only share a little bit of information about it for obvious reasons, but it's safe to say that it's a huge economic driver. And just
Sure.
having the aerospace and defense industry is great, and their success is amazing. But think of all the other industries that support that industry.
Right. That come along
And
with
those
it.
are often really small businesses that are supporting that.
Mm,
So, yeah.
okay. All right. Well, I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. I feel like we've talked about the economy. I feel like we've talked about some things that are headwinds or barriers, as you say.
Let me share one more thing about
Yeah,
the tax
please.
credit.
Please.
Some people think Utah is giving out cash to companies to convince them to come here. It is
We're
a-
greasing some palms
it
on
is
the
a
down low.
Post-performance
Okay.
tax credit. Every consumer knows what a rebate is. Our grants and incentives guy doesn't love it when I call it a rebate. But for a consumer, it works like a rebate. You go spend the money and you do a certain number of things to claim your, hey, this is what I did, and you submit it, and then you get a rebate. That's how our tax credit program is structured. A company signs a contract with a state.
Yeah.
We're going to hire this many people. We're going to pay 110% of the average county wage. We're going to invest this much money in capital in this area, in buildings, in
Yeah.
equipment. And we'll do this over this period of time. And then for that, the state says, okay, we'll give you up to 20% back of your Utah taxes as a post-performance tax credit. I think it's, again, fiscally conservative. It's a smart thing to do. The company never gets the money. First of all, they'll sign a contract.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they're going to do all those things.
Right.
If they don't do those things, they don't get the money. So it's in my mind, a win-win situation. The second point I want to make is 2/3 of the companies who've engaged with the state in that program since
Yeah.
it was created in
Yeah.
2005 are Utah-based companies. This is not a program that's primarily bringing in huge companies from different states. It's primarily supporting Utah entrepreneurs, which is awesome. That's what we want to do.
Yeah.
But we also want to be able to play the game like other states in
Right.
economic development
Sure.
and have a program by which we can incentivize
Other
people to
companies to come in.
here. And so that's how it works. That's the space it plays in. And it's a long game. It's a 5-10 year game. And
You feel
on
pretty passionate about that.
Yeah.
Have you felt some headwinds against that program, or
there are some media who will put headlines that say Utah gives away $8 million. That's BS. That's not true. It's post-performance tax credit. So they have to do all the work and then they can get a credit back. But here's what I wanted to say. On our website, incented companies, there's a whole table that since it was started in the early 2000s, you can sort by the company
see
name,
all of 'em.
by the city, by the amount.
so it's transparent?
Yeah, it's published on the website. Every column is sortable up or down. You can see number of jobs incentivized. You can also see what percent of their EDTIF they have claimed. And you will be surprised to learn, for various reasons, that a lot of companies don't claim 100% of the EDTIF.
Dude, it's like your
Very
gift
few.
card, right?
Yes.
You don't always spend all
Thank
your
you.
gift card.
I love that analogy. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a huge balance left for a lot of them.
Mm.
And, maybe they don't need the money. Maybe they forgot about it. Maybe they haven't met their goals. Maybe they're just focused
Maybe their
on
leadership changed.
Maybe
or,
they're focused
yeah.
on other things.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Okay. Lots of resources, lots of good things. You are amazing. I'm so glad you're part of this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah, let's keep having the conversations that bring the talent and the opportunities to everyone as we bring in these companies and we build up the Utah companies here as well. Like that could be a really powerful synergy when we find the right way to do that.
Yeah, that economic opportunity is so important for individuals and for families and for Utah's success. We have to find a way to support that for everyone.
Yep.
As in an inclusive way, as much as possible.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Pete. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Cool.